that bouquet of flowers? Or are you just happy to see me?
Amongst the heyday of point-and-click titles, Noctropolis is a bit overlooked. Pulling heavy from the works of darker comics that emerged in the 80s and 90s, Noctropolis went for something more mature and adult. And no, I'm not talking its themes and subject matter, I'm talking about its usage of nudity. One of the earlier games to feature it in all its highly compressed FMV glory. As far as point-and-click titles go, it has the usual frustrations. There's several egregious cases of the dreaded pixel hunt. Puzzles are a bit lackluster in quality and numbers compared to similar titles. That said, it does sidestep most bizarre point-and-click logic that can plague the genre. The plot finds itself disjointed and stretches with its pacing issues. Some elements don't feel earned. There's a lack of comeuppance to most of the game's villains. There's a lingering feeling of Noctropolis having a decent chunk of cut content. And despite these flaws, the game makes up for it and more with its strengths. For a genre known for strong art direction, Noctropolis is a standout. The drop-dead gorgeous hand-drawn backgrounds go a long way in creating an immersive atmosphere. An atmosphere that sucks you into this fleshed-out, compelling world. It nails the feeling of a dark comic, yet knows when to dial back on the grim and dial up on the slapstick. There's some inspired humor throughout its short runtime. And despite the pacing issues, there's some memorable characters who make the most of their screen time. Despite its odd flaws and quirks, Noctropolis is one worth being familiar with from the golden age of point-and-click titles. It's a game that there hasn't been much coverage on compared to its contemporaries. I wouldn't call it a lost classic by any stretch, but it's one more people should be aware of. Noctropolis kicks off with a short credit roll with the skyline of Noctropolis in the background. Ah, the days when games had small core development teams. Bygone days of yesteryear beyond the indie realm. Changes in scope and technology have necessitated a shift to larger development teams and outsourcing. But with that comes far too many cooks in the kitchen. Few notable names here, that being Sean Mitchell and Brent Erickson, the key creative heads and decision makers of Noctropolis. Brent founded Flashpoint Productions, the studio behind Noctropolis in Utah in 1992. Through his contacts in the gaming industry, he was able to pitch to Trip Hopkins, founder of Electronic Arts, who would publish Noctropolis. We cut to a band of mischievous miscreants in a boardroom overlooking the city. At the head of the table stands Flux, the leader of the pack.
And so it begins. You each have your assigned tasks. Remember what you owe me. Without my aid, you'd all still be rotting behind bars where Darkshale left you. Do not fail me.
We then cut to a bookstore. This is our protagonist, Peter Gray, a schmuck down on his luck. He owns this bookstore, a bookstore that sells an assortment of antique books, at least in theory. Books keep piling up as no one is buying. Unpaid bills are also piling up. Further adding to the distress is a devastating divorce. Peter is hanging on by a thread. Compared to other point-and-click protagonists, Peter is more of a blank slate. Yes, he does have a background story. Yes, he does speak through dialogue choices. But he has no voice. A bit unusual compared to other point-and-click protagonists. It's not due to technical limitations. This mid-90s timeframe did see a shift away from floppy disks to compact disks. Noctropolis did start off on a floppy disk before EA gave the go-ahead to switch to a larger storage format. Other characters in Noctropolis have a voice, although not all dialogue is voice-acted. Noctropolis would use a mixture of theater and film actors from the Utah area where Flashpoint resided. But at first, the game was going to go Hollywood. They met with several notable actors and figures in the B-movie realm. This included notable martial arts stars like Cynthia Rothrock, Jeff Speakman, and the late Brandon Lee. Oh, and they had talks with Fabio. Yes, that Fabio. Popular cover boy for romance novels Fabio. Why the shift away from Hollywood? Turns out there was some miscommunication. They did not have EA's full blessing for shooting in Hollywood. The shoots were putting the project over budget, so they returned back to Utah and shot there with local talent. But they were able to take some of the costumes designed back with them to Utah for use in shooting. One of the costume designers would go on to work with David Lynch on his 1997 film Lost Highway. I mentioned this point for Noctropolis as Flashpoint Productions had ties to David Lynch, that being the world of Twin Peaks. a seminal work that had an immense influence in the world of gaming. A series that's had fan projects, but never an official license released. Well, in the early 90s, EA did obtain the license for it and assigned Flashpoint Productions the task of creating a title. EA wanted in on the adventure game genre. Before founding Flashpoint Productions, Brent Erickson did work on the Tex Murphy series. They only worked on the idea for Twin Peaks for a few weeks before EA pulled the plug. Why that was, I couldn't find an answer. Further known on David Lynch in the world of video games. He was working with a Japanese game studio, Synergy, in the late 90s to develop a game. Woodcutters from Fiery Ships. Nothing was ever shown of the game itself. David was a fan of the studio's previous work, Gadget, a bizarre point-and-click title. A game that might appear on the channel in its future. The game never came to fruition, with David commenting it was blocked from the get-go. A game that would have been boring to game buffs. Total bummer. I would love to see what they would have come up with, however esoteric it may be. My socks are on fire at the very thought. He gave a brief synopsis of it, and it did seem like some elements did pop up in the 2017 return of Twin Peaks. There would be a man in a bungalow behind a house in Los Angeles. Woodcutters would take this man onto a 1930s sort of ship, fueled by logs, and they would smoke pipes. Back to Noctropolis. The project cancelled, EA asked Flashpoint if they had any original properties. Flashpoint told them, yes, plenty, hung up the phone, and scrambled to come up with ideas. One scrambled idea was Noctropolis, which EA accepted. Let's take a look at the game's interface. It's unique, that's for sure. Noctropolis uses this pyramid to choose from a myriad of actions. Use, I understand. Look, I understand. Talk, I understand. But I did find some ambiguity amongst some of the other choices, like move and go to. Move is not move around, but to move an object. Go to is how you move around. It's not like your typical point and click where you can move anywhere on the screen. You don't have free movement in Noctropolis. You'll have key spots you could go to, like doors, certain objects, and people. Get is to pick up an item. Open is to open something like a door, a window, a drawer, an object. Amongst the many cases of pixel hunting, which I'll get into later, there will be points where I did have to cycle through these options. Can I get this object? No. Can I move it? No. Can I open it? Ah, there we go. It's one of those elements where Noctropolis makes things more convoluted than need be. But there is one thing that Noctropolis does for the player, combining items in our inventory. A staple of the point-and-click genre. Puzzles that require an assortment of item combinations to complete. Beyond pixel hunting, these can be the bane of a player's patience for puzzles. Combinations of items that defy logic beyond the realm of point-and-click logic. Noctropolis takes care of this for us. That said, there's only a couple scenarios where there's ever a need to combine items. One shows up in the game's end stretch. You have to get across this incomplete staircase blocked by a dog. You have a rope and sausage in your inventory. Using the rope will attach the sausage to it. The game does this for you. There's no combine item option. This will take care of the dog in an unforeseen act of animal cruelty. Peter, tossing the sausage to distract the dog should have been sufficient. Did we really need to go this far? Afterward, to cross this chasm, Peter combines a broom, duct tape, and a meat hook to cross. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's take things back to the start. Noctropolis offers plenty of descriptive writing when it comes to looking around environments, especially in the first stretch at Peter's bookstore. You get a clear idea of what's going on through his mind. The bills piling up, portraits of his ex-wife on the dartboard, his fondness for comic books, in particular the Darkshire series, which, much to his dismay, had a recent cancellation. Sitting in his office is the final issue. Talk about a further twist of the knife. So let's kick back, relax, and read the final installment of the adventures of Darkshire. As the player, we can read through the comic. This is a 90s comic through and through, from the art to the dialogue, Batman being the most indisputable influence, something the development team admitted. They did not have access to the license, but took heavy influence from the Cape Crusader. This time frame of the early to mid-90s was a transitional time frame of tackling dark, edgier themes and feel for superheroes. In 1993, the year prior to Noctropolis, you had significant comic storylines. Bane breaking the Bat, or the death of Superman. You had the debut of comics like Spawn and Shadow Man, which would get its own game adaptation, and one I covered in the past. On the silver screen, while nowhere near the mass saturation of today, you would get the occasional popcorn flick donning a superhero, like Batman Returns, one of the darker superhero films, or bringing up the late Brandon Lee again, The Crow. For the television viewing audience, you had some quality choices for cartoons. One suitable for a younger audience, but weren't afraid to get into darker territory at times.
Weekday afternoons on Fox. Batman's getting busy. He's gonna jump. Take him, boys. Jolt. Fly. Fling. Swing. Dive. And drive. All you have to do is hang on.
We'll end this on a high note.
Get ready for action.
Batman, weekdays at 4:30 on Fox 39.
For the gamers, you had your assortment of licensed titles that could vary in quality. Many made for bang-up, beat-em-up blockbuster rentals to kill an afternoon or two with friends. Reading the Darkshire comic and game is a bit aggravating. No speech bubbles or descriptions are on screen unless you click on that panel, so you're clicking around to see the dialogue. There are cases where it's unclear if clicking here is a different panel than before. The game files, at least in the GOG version I'm using here, did have the comic in a more conventional manner of reading. Our hero and protagonist, Darkshire, has come to deal with 3 vile villains: Top Hat, Desperado, and Widowmark. He summoned them to an amusement park. Putting aside their differences, the 3 thugs test their skills against Darkshire. Darkshire deals with Desperado and Widowmark, but poison now courses through his veins courtesy of Widowmark. Top Hat gets the upper hand on him, but his steadfast, sexy sidekick Stiletto arrives on the scene to turn the tables. On the note of music of Noctropolis, there's plenty of great tracks throughout our travels, which I'll point out later. I have to note the jolting music during these comic stretches. Some pages and stretches have more low-key, down-tempo tracks. Then you'll flip a page, the music fades out, and in comes crashing a sea of noise. It's a jolt, to say the least. These up-tempo tracks wouldn't sound out of place in another 1994 PC release. After the fight, we do get some backstory about this world of Noctropolis. Darkshire and Stiletto have rounded up all the never-do-wellers being a nuisance to the city of Noctropolis. Darkshire decides it's time to hang up the cape and retire. Distraught, Stiletto confides in her and Darkshire's mentor, Father Desmond. She loves Darkshire but has never admitted it. Try as he might, Father Desmond cannot convince Darkshire to change his mind. Stiletto confesses her love to Darkshire, but that's still not enough. Where he plans on going, it wouldn't make sense to have a relationship. The city throws Darkshire a parade before he vanishes into the night. An unending night, mind you. Due to some catastrophic calamity from years prior, the sun never shines on Noctropolis. It never pierces the clouds engulfing the city. Completing the comic, Peter will have an unexpected visitor. It's a fleeting glimpse, but you do see a bit of nipple here. And this won't be the only time we do in Noctropolis. Stiletto will have a showing later on. There's a covered up shot of her on the back of the box and including advertisements for the game. No doubt a means of enticing potential buyers while browsing the shelves or looking through a magazine. While not the first game to feature nudity, it may be the first FMV title to feature nudity beyond pixelated characters. Interesting to note that this was at the insistence of EA. They want to make something more adult, more mature, something to stand out amongst other titles. Something risque. Funny to think about EA and risk-taking, considering how risk-averse they've been for decades now. It seems like they were trying to bank on some of the controversy and attention given to games around this time frame with the Senate hearings in the United States. Hearings that led to the creation of the ESRB, where Senate committees targeted violent games and their impact on children. Games spotlighted included Doom, Mortal Kombat, and most reprehensible of all, Night Trap.
I don't believe what I just saw.
That said, I couldn't find solid sales numbers for Noctropolis, so I'd wager a guess that it didn't perform as they hoped. Awakening from his slumber after an unexpected visitor, the buzzer rings. There's a carrier speaking in riddles with a package for Peter.
one hand there's black, in the other there's white. But it's the gray in between that my riddle sees right. Do you?
Giving her the ticket stub from the office, she'll hand over the package. Inside resides 2 metal tokens, 1 gold, the other silver. And much to Peter's surprise, an issue continuing the Darkshire story. This comic is significantly shorter than the prior one we read. We start with Master Macabre, a malicious miscreant locked up in a maximum security wing. Flux, who we saw from the game's intro, the man at the head of the table, frees Macabre. Flux demands devotion in exchange for freedom and a chance for revenge on Darkshire. We get a comic shot of the boardroom from earlier, and get a name for all the table's thugs. Beyond Master Macabre, we have the theatrical Top Hat, who we saw earlier in the prior comic. There is the seductive Succubus, the unexpected visitor from earlier. The other 2 to round out this evil-doing entourage are the Dreamler and Green Thumb. Yeah, some of these miscreants seem a bit more imposing than the others. With Darkshire retired and vanished, the fearsome foes run roughshod on Noctropolis. Father Desmond pleads for Stiletto to return to her crime-fighting ways, but without Darkshire, she's given up hope. She spends her days staring at the bottom of a bottle. In desperation, Father Desmond beseeches God to send Darkshire back to him. God will grant him this wish, although in a way he does not expect as the comic ends. So when now? We can't leave our store. What else is there to do? Let's take a closer look at these tokens we received in the package. And welcome Peter Gray to the streets of Noctropolis, the city where the sun never pierces the clouds, leaving it in perpetual darkness from some past catastrophic event. There's a nearby newsman hawking newspapers that we could chat with for information.
Man, you look weird. I never forget a face, but I ain't never seen you around here before. I'm just like everybody else, but you're some kind of freak.
As mentioned, not all dialogue in Noctropolis receives a voiceover. You gotta love the compressed audio and video quality to shrink down the file sizes for the time. There's that lo-fi charm to it. A far cry from today's bloated install sizes, where uncompressed audio in every language under the sun, including Klingon, plays a major role. For unvoiced dialogue, we bring up a range of topics from these icons. You can ask about people, places, items. I can never get a solid grasp on this UI layout and scrolling through. There could be points where it felt like it was easy for me to miss a topic beyond the game changing the color of an icon. The newsman will be one you'll want to return to. He gives plenty of information and can give us locations to fill out our map. Like how he mentions Father Desmond seems to have locked himself away in his cathedral. We can use the travel command on the pyramid to move to the map of Noctropolis, one that will fill out further as we continue our travels. As the newsman mentioned Father Desmond is at the cathedral, let's go pay him a visit. There's a gargoyle guarding the cathedral entrance. Trying to bypass it will only result in the game over. There are a few game overs throughout Noctropolis, but not as many as other point-and-click titles. Nothing compared to the likes of, say, Sierra. Still, I always love to see the wondrous ways of meeting your end in a point-and-click title. This gargoyle serves as one of the first major roadblocks of Noctropolis. That said, everything you need to deal with it resides on this single screen. There's a wire on the far left side. Okay, easy enough to spot. Light guides our attention to it. There's a panel on the entrance that's easy enough to spot, but we need something else to toss the wire into the fountain that the gargoyle likes to frequent. There's a loose fence spire that we could grab, connect to the wire, and hurl it in the fountain to take care of the gargoyle. Classic point-and-click logic, but one oh-so-common bane of these kind of games is the dreaded pixel hunt, where you spend more time hunting for items amongst the pixels on screen than solving the actual puzzles. Pixel hunting will always be in the eye of the beholder. That said, Noctropolis will have several scenarios where I fell victim to the dreaded pixel hunt. Items found elsewhere in different locations that were oh so easy to overlook. But we will get more to those later. On the positive side of pixels, the backgrounds of Noctropolis, or to be more specific, the paintings. These are drop-dead gorgeous. One of the joys of Noctropolis was visiting new areas to see what new vista awaited me. They built these backgrounds the old school way. Airbrushed, paintbrush, acrylic, and oil, all on 8.5 by 11 inch canvases. No computers involved in their designs. They scanned the drawings and added layers and boundary parameters for the player to interact with. It was a long, arduous process, but the results speak for themselves. Point-and-click titles have their fair share of breathtaking background work. Noctropolis is one of the standouts among the point-and-click catalog. The team took heavy influence from Gotham City with a dash of Louis Sullivan, a prominent architect known as the father of skyscrapers. Further adding to the game's atmosphere is the music of Noctropolis. Fitting complement to the dark, foreboding feel of the city, yet the game doesn't take itself too seriously. There's plenty of tongue-in-cheek within. The music will reflect these moods. Classic early to mid-90s MIDI instrumentation to remind you of a bygone era, where the instrumentation may not be the highest of quality, but the melodies are. Entering the confessional booth within the cathedral, Father Desmond will speak with us. But he's on edge thanks to being locked up, courtesy of the gargoyle.
You've come to the wrong place for shelter. Soon one of the most despicable villains in all of Noctropolis will be here to destroy me. If he finds you here, you will surely die. It's best you leave while there's still time.
Learning of our disposal of the guarding gargoyle, Father Desmond beseeches us to take up the mantle of Darkshire. Well, that was quick. To be fair, Father Desmond says the gargoyle would have been a formidable foe even for the past Darkshire. He's desperate for someone, anyone, to step up and take the cape after the former Darkshire's disappearance. This scene does exemplify one of the key issues I have with the plot of Noctropolis, its pacing. Noctropolis is not a long game. Yet Father Desmond handing Peter the mantle of Darkshire in short order doesn't quite feel earned. If he had us do another task or two before naming us the new Darkshire, sure. Nevertheless, desperate times call for desperate measures, so I can let it slide. Father Desmond will give us a jawbone and the location of Stiletto's apartment. Heading to Stiletto's abode, she's drinking the days and nights away. There's nothing that we could say at this point that will change her mind.
Right, and I'm gonna ask Master Macabre to trim my nails.
On the note of Stiletto's actress, Hope Marie Carlton. While the rest of the cast came from theater in the Utah area or the development team, Hope was a bit more notable name. A former Playboy playmate, she did star in a string of low-budget action films in the 80s. One's directed by Andy Sidaris, which included Hard Ticket to Hawaii.
4 of America's finest, ready and willing to pay the price for paradise.
While I've not seen the film, I did see the Best of the Worst episode from Red Letter Media that featured it.
I want someone to explain any of that to me.
What can we do with the jawbone that Father Desmond gave us? We can take it to the Hall of Records to identify the individual. There's a clerk here that blends in with the environment in a bit of a different case of a pixel hunt. At first I thought that was the stand for the monitor, but no, that's the clerk. Like the newsman, he will be handy to return to for unlocking further locations, as we do here. Asking about the jawbone, the clerk identifies the man as Ben Hutchins. The rest of him resides in the mausoleum, which now unlocks on our map. Heading to the mausoleum, we have another bizarre case of point-and-click logic. There's a casket that we need to unlock. Move a corpse, find a key, and hop in the casket? Peter, why would you do such a thing? Well, you know how point-and-click titles play with different sets of logic, so let's roll with it. The casket's carriers will provide a further dash of humor to the scene.
Maybe we ought to check inside. You know, see who's in there.
What are you, some kind of pervoid? I ain't looking at no dead guy. Now lend a hand, you lazy ass.
Emerging from the casket, Peter will find himself reunited with the sultry succubus.
Yes, Peter. Do you remember the passion, the ecstasy,
We're destined for each other, and you're in my world now. There'll be plenty of time for that later. Right now, I want you all to myself. And I mean to have you, Peter. Now. It's too late, Peter. You can't resist me now, can you? You're mine. How do you feel about chains, Peter?
Now sporting a protruding neck wound courtesy of the succubus, we're on a timer. 8 minutes to find something to heal us or perish. Moving the statue, we can descend into the lair of the succubus. Girl, this is where you rest? You think she had a bit more class and style? There's an item here that's easy to miss. You can escape her lair using the spear, but for the game to continue proper along the critical path, you need to read her diary. One hidden underneath her pillow, which I did miss the first time, so I wandered around like a headless chicken for a stretch. A bit surprised that the game allows you to leave her lair without reading her diary. I am playing the remastered edition from Night Dive, a 2015 release, which did fix various bugs. Ones that could prevent you from completing the game if you missed a prior item. That said, you can go back to her lair, so it's not like you're screwed. On the topic of screwing, the succubus left to plant bombs at the cathedral, and after she knocked Peter out, it seems we planted a bomb in her belly. With the diary read, there are shifts at the cathedral. Items that weren't there before, like the chalice. After finding the bomb, the succubus swoops in to deal with Father Desmond, someone she has a past with.
You're bluffing, priest. You can't put a bullet in this body. The body of dear Sister Mercer. It was your fault, remember? Go ahead, holy man. Pull the trigger.
She was a nurse, a steadfast sister of the church. During an exorcism conducted by Father Desmond, the departing demon sought refuge in her body. Since then, the demon has pursued Father Desmond with a fiery vengeance. The manual provides further context to her origin story, although this confrontation covers the major beats. Check out those walking animations of hers. This gave me a bit of a hoot watching it. The dev team mentioned in hindsight they wish they put more time into the game's walking animations. It was more of an afterthought compared to other areas. Before she reaches Father Desmond, Stiletto swoops in to stop Succubus. It's a team effort. As they fight, we need to finish her off with some holy water. Use the nearby chalice as a vessel and remove that demon from within her. Enjoy your time with Father Desmond. Unless I missed him elsewhere in an optional scene, that's it for his screen time. The same goes for Succubus or Sister Mercer. What's she going to do about the baby inside her? Well, as we will see later, this holy water may have removed more than the demon inside her. After the fight, Peter passes out. The timer's still ticking. Stiletto will take us down to Darkshear's lair. Here we heal up in this pool of cold, dark liquid known as Liquid Dark. How original. While we may have convinced Father Desmond we're worthy of the Darkshear mantle, Stiletto isn't convinced. She'll test Peter's qualifications through combat. You have several options here. Fight back, have a verbal sparring match, or cry. If you do curl up in a ball and cry, she'll head back to her apartment. With this path, you can ask for forgiveness for another chance and she accepts us as the new Darkshear? That's it? We're a team now? Boy, they must be in dire desperation for someone to fill the role of Darkshear. Talk about anticlimactic. But there's another path where Stiletto acknowledges us as the reigning Darkshear. One that feels more earned, to an extent. When she tests Peter's prowess in combat, choose the actions to fight back. I guess Peter has some skills in martial arts. Peter will emerge victorious and we're given the option to seal it off with a kiss. Wait, already? This should be a moment you build up to. Something that would happen near the end of the game, in its end stretch, or as we enter the game's final act. It's another case of the game's pacing being all out of whack. Like how Father Desmond and Stiletto should have given us more tasks before giving up the Darkshear mantle. This kiss needed some building up to. Nevertheless, we are now Darkshear. In this lair, we can find his equipment, although Peter looks more like a cosplayer or a trick-or-treater than an actual superhero. There's a letter-bound book here that the first Darkshear mentioned in the comics that was a bit of a Bible to him. It's a bit of a read. one authored by a secret society known as the Brotherhood of the Night. There's some foreshadowing amongst the text, like the topic of elementals. There's speculation if they even exist. A race of immortal beings devoted to the perpetuation of natural phenomena, such as light and darkness. The Brotherhood devoted years of research to creating the quintessence of darkness. While they were never able to reach that level, they were able to produce liquid art, which fills the pool that heals us. From here on in, Stiletto will now accompany us. We can talk to her for some thoughts, but more often than not, it's a generic comment.
Don't look at me. You're the city's new champion.
But she does come in handy for distracting the denizens of Noctropolis, like this construction site for the Sunspire Tower. The security guard won't let us by no matter what we do, but Stiletto will use her womanly charms to distract the guard. That said, we don't get to see this guard's reaction to Stiletto's advances.
Hi. I just love a man who'll show me his affection.
But we can see it elsewhere in one of the game's funnier moments. One area we could visit is the headquarters of Cygnus Construction, a company that has its hand in many different pockets in Noctropolis. They are the company constructing the Sunspire Tower. The receptionist won't let us talk to the company's top brass until we deal with the air conditioning situation. She'll send us to talk with Leon, the maintenance worker, to fix it. No matter what we say, Leon won't budge. That is, until Stiletto steps in and makes use of her wooing womanly charms. This time we get to see Leon's reaction to her advances. Classic comedy right here. Some of these faces Leon makes here are priceless.
Hello. I'm looking for Leon.
That's me. Yeah, I'm Leon.
You're even more handsome up close. Leon, I just had to finally meet the sexiest man I've ever seen.
The sexiest?
Oh, yes. And I was so impressed to find out what you did here. I just love a man who can handle his tools.
Tools. Yeah, that's what I do. I fix things.
Ooh, it gives me chills when you talk that way, Leon. I want to see you fix something before you work on me. Is there something you need to repair? Maybe the air conditioning?
That's fixed already. Did it days ago. It's just I turned it off on account of Wanda wouldn't go out with me. I had tickets to wrestling and everything.
I can't believe any woman could say no to you, Leon. And I love wrestling. I have to go, Leon, but I want to turn it on. Will you let me?
Yeah, it's easy. All you do is flip the switch. It's that red one there on the wall.
Oh, Leon, I want to do the same to you right now. I want to flip your switch.
With the air conditioning situation solved, we can go chat with the callous, cold-hearted CEO of Cygnus, Miss Shoto, on the 99th floor. She's mum on the topic of the Sunspire Tower, its purpose, who is financing its construction, but she does let it slip that the architect intended the building's top to transcend the cloud layer, exposing it to sunlight. Do you recall, Noctropolis is in perpetual darkness, the clouds never parting. When we leave Cygnus, she'll have a phone call with someone unseen and unheard.
He was just here. He's better than we thought.
At this point, I'm at a bit of a loss of what we need to do next to advance along the critical path. There's a wealthy widow on the edge of town, Mrs. Bornick. Her husband dead, she suspects foul play courtesy of Cygnus Construction. But nothing here to advance the critical path. After some aimless wandering, I do take a look at a guide to get a hint of moving forward. Back at the construction site with the security guard, there's a delivery truck. Taking a closer look at the truck, there's a sign mounted that reads Central Park Greenhouse. This is now a possible dialogue option when we talk to the newsman. Now the greenhouse will be up on her map. You know, you would think Stiletto would know the town like the back of her hand, but we can't ask her about these locations. Instead, the newsman or the clerk will be a common source of marking locations on her map. Point and click logic, ladies and gentlemen. At the greenhouse, I run into another roadblock. It's locked and I can't seem to find a way in. There's a nearby truck with a few items, but none will let me in. Bringing up the construction site again, we have another case of pixel hunting. Sitting on this wood is a glass cutter. This is one where I looked at a guide, then had to look at a playthrough to find the exact location of it. I see it now, but boy is this an egregious example of the dreaded pixel hunt. I've covered a few point-and-click titles on the channel. Noctropolis had what felt to be the most cases of pixel hunting. None as egregious as ones found in Limbo of the Lost, but they seem to be in greater quantity here. With a glass cutter, we can now cut an entrance into the greenhouse. There we're attacked by plants. Green Thumb, one of the 5 foul foes, has been waiting for us.
The same thing I wanted from the old shit. To watch you square. I have to go now. I have a date with a hat. Do you enjoy the opera? Tonight I'll be singing a tale called Next. Rather entertaining story. I do wish you could make it.
After taunting us, Green Thumb exits stage left. Not only for the scene, but the entire game. Another case of odd pacing issues. Several of these villains will have cliffhangers or unsatisfying conclusions. That said, Green Thumb feels very much like an afterthought. Like they threw a few ideas in a hat, pulled some ideas out, and combined them to make Green Thumb. Very much feels like a poor man's Poison Ivy. Let's see what the manual has to say about the grotesque Green Thumb. Brilliant at his work, Dr. Horace Bartholomew loved to create hybrid plants to thrive within Noctropolis. A mishap while mixing chemicals killed him in an instant. But the plants survived and revived Horace with their mutant essence. He's now more plant than human and causes ruckuses amongst the streets of Noctropolis. After freeing ourselves, a poster will roll past us at the entrance of the greenhouse. One mentioning the opera, which Green Thumb also mentioned in their conversation with him. Again, you would think we'd be able to ask Stiletto where the opera house is. Something like an opera house should be a notable landmark in the city. But no, it's another case of chatting with the newsman or the clerk to get an idea of where it's located. There's a lady of the night loitering at the entrance of the opera hall. As far as I know, there's nothing that we could part with that she will accept to offer her services. But there are some pretty funny lines to be found in conversing with her.
Hey honey, looking for a party? Sweetie, I've done them all. Suits and capes included. If you think masquerading as Darkshire is going to get you a freebie, you're dead wrong.
Inside the theater awaits the theatrical Top Hat. Of all the vile villains we come across, she makes the most of her screen time. You could tell the development team devoted time to her and the actress knew how to ham it up. That said, she does seem to be a formidable foe, dealing with Stiletto and having a captive audience watching in horror.
My, Stiletto, what a wicked tongue. But then, you never were one for tactful phrasing, were you?
She sends us on a task. Head to the nearby observatory to swipe a lens from the telescope in exchange for the audience and Stiletto's safety. And here's something I was not ready for. A forced stealth section. First, we have to use our gear to fall under the cover of darkness to avoid the cameras. Else, we're off to the slammer where it seems like Peter catches the eye of Bubba. Inside the observatory, we have to time our movements to avoid the spotlights or it's game over. As mentioned earlier, Noctropolis limits our movements. We can't move or go to everywhere on the screen. This section gives us a bit more flexibility in where we can go. That said, it did take more tries than I care to admit of timing my movements right. It took several reloads. With the lens obtained, it's back to the Opera House, where Top Hat has reneged on her agreement. Those are quite the powers she has, being able to warp us around like that. The hilarity continues after Top Hat exits stage left. An old man janitor sweeps the stage and isn't quite sure what we want with him.
What seems to be the trouble? Oh, sure. There. Now you're really cooking.
Now free, we're able to head back to our shadow lair to heal up from knife wounds courtesy of Top Hat. This is the last time we see Top Hat. There's no case of comeuppance, both for Peter or Stiletto. For Green Thumb, it was a bit of a shrug of the shoulders. There wasn't much to him. But Top Hat was a far more formidable and entertaining presence. It's another case of the game's pacing being a bit out of whack, with a lack of satisfying payoff. It also feels like a case of cut content or ideas that never made it in-game. Beyond some painful pixel hunting, these perplexing pacing issues are the foulest flaws of Noctropolis. Let's resort back to the manual to learn more about her origins. Growing up in a poor household, Cynthia Burrows used magic to escape from a tumultuous home life. She devoted herself to the study of magic and physics. In university, her mentor and chairman of the physics department attempted to assault her. Her mind snapped. Say goodbye to Cynthia Burrows, say hello to Top Hat, magician extraordinaire and merciless criminal. Healed up, let's return the search for Stiletto. In another case of pesky pixel hunting, there's a trapdoor on the stage. One that is easy to miss. We use a nearby brick to hit a control panel to traverse through the trapdoor. In the basement of the Opera House, a group of 4 gang members will accost us. They might have information of Stiletto passing through here, but they'll want something in exchange. A couple of rooms back, there's a case with jewelry inside. When you examine it, Peter mentions it looks like one's rap stars would wear. You would think the gang would want this jewelry, but no. Well, at least not at first. You first give them Top Hat's throwing knives. Handing over the knives, a gang member will mention a peculiar name. Do keep this name in mind for later.
Excellent. They look like Master Whisperman's knives. He's gonna like them. Maybe enough to promote me. Don't count on it. All right. We'll let you live, but get out of here before we change our mind.
Continuing the conversation, you can inquire about Stiletto's whereabouts by parting with the jewelry. Seems like she was taken to the downtown butcher shop. Of course, if you pick the wrong dialogue choices during this exchange, you'll end up on the wrong side of a shanking.
Man, you picked the wrong guys to mouth off to.
By now, I know the deal with locating locations. Go chat with the newsman or the clerk. Since the gangsters mentioned a butcher shop, I'm sure one of them can point us in the right direction. While scrolling through the dialogue options, I'm keeping an eye out for something like a meat cleaver. That's what you expect for something like a butcher shop, would it not? Well, no, its icon is this random dude. With the oddball layout of dialogue inquiries, I found this easy to miss. Let's pay the butcher a visit. I love the choppy animations for him chopping up meat. While he starts friendly, there seems to be a darkness lingering within this butcher. He makes quite the impression amongst the game's memorable cast with but a few lines of dialogue. They could have made him a villain.
You must have been mistaken. I cannot talk no longer. I have much work to do. These people, they think they know all about my life. It just pisses me off.
We can snag some sausage from the butcher in exchange for something from our inflating inventory. By this point, I'm starting to wonder, will all these items receive usage? The answer is no. There are a few items like the bomb and detonator from the cathedral earlier that I wonder why Peter never parted with. They won't receive usage later. There's some lace from the succubus gown we found in the mausoleum. Unless I missed something optional, we never need to use it, adding to the feeling that they made some late game cuts to its content. So at this point, I'm clicking through my items to see what the butcher will accept in exchange for the sausage. That gold token makes sense, but no. Clicking through a few more items, turns out it's the newspaper we nabbed from the newsman. Okay. In the back room, we can discover a hidden ladder leading downward. We'll find the mischievous Master Macabre torturing our steadfast sidekick Stiletto strapped down to a gurney.
You're just in time! Oh, so sharp. Much sharper than, say, a stiletto, for instance. Oh, crazy, eh? Interesting. Why don't you join us, Yorkshire? The fun is just beginning.
We will join her, courtesy of gas that knocks Peter out. Master Macabre is very much the living embodiment of the mad scientist trope.
But, if you keep this up, you'll rattle my nerves. When I'm nervous, I tend to get stuffy. Why, I've even been known to remove things unnecessarily.
As he steps out of the room for a moment, we can free ourselves by clicking at random, seeing what we can move around. Unlike Green Thumb or Top Hat, Master Macabre has a definite end to his story.
That's for my finger.
That said, it still felt like they could have gotten far more mileage out of him. While he had a definite end, what were his origins? Once again, let's head to the game manual. Born William Blish, he was the most brilliant yet controversial surgeon in Noctropolis. He would conduct grand experiments with indifference to the suffering to those experimented on. One night, gang members abducted Dr. Blish to save the life of their gang leader. He patched up their leader, but the gang did not let Dr. Blish go. They captured rival gang members and tortured them to death, using Dr. Blish's tools. The gang forced Dr. Blish to witness their work. At some point, Dr. Blish snapped and began to enjoy the show. He instructed the gang on how to inflict the most pain during torture. Dr. Blish was no more. There was only Master Macabre. Speaking of mileage, we have a bit of a journey to escape this maze of his. We have a much extended countdown timer before succumbing to our wounds. We have to make our way through this maze before we could travel back to our lair to heal up. This is quite the stretch of several rooms to navigate through. If they want to have more use of Master Macabre, we could have chased him down through these rooms as he taunts us. Check out this blood-curdling background amongst the lair of Master Macabre. What kind of madness was this mad scientist working on? This stretch will have a few more cases of painful pixel hunting where it's easy to miss something from several rooms back. There's also a case of a cheap game over if you cross this catwalk without checking its stability. There's one final challenge at the end of this maddening maze. An honest-to-God, genuine puzzle of lining up these colored dots. But before we can, there's this creature blocking our way.
I can! Most of the others have been more disabled than me. My tongue is still in my mouth. I escaped from that psychopath Macabre into this place. Not even he dares enter here.
We can't help his image issues through the makeup kit we found at the Opera House. He talks about his past dealings at Cygnus Construction and makes mention of Whisper Man, a name mentioned while talking with the gangsters. Beyond pixel hunting and figuring out what items to use where, this is more or less the only classic puzzle here. Use our wits and logic to move these three colors around to line up three of them in a row. There's one empty space to move them around accordingly. One of those puzzles you could solve in a few moves if you're lucky, or you may be spending a fair amount of time on. I was on the latter in solving it. We can now return to our shadow lair to rid ourselves of our wounds. Remember the back of the box for Noctropolis or the advertisements for the game? A shot of a nude stiletto covered up? Well, now we get to see it in all its low quality glory. It's not a passing glance as it was with the succubus. Things aren't what they seem.
Don't you know who I am, Shadow Man? You lie, Shadow Man, but I'll tell you true. I'm the master of dreams. Your dreams.
Of all the breathtaking backgrounds of Noctropolis, the Dreamler's dreamscapes are a real standout. Very much reminds me of the game Sanitarium, a nightmarish amusement park full of dreamlike, unsettling imagery. Like this one room with this demon defending a diamond with a baby in tow. Is this supposed to be the demon from earlier that we removed from Succubus? And did it take the baby with them in the process? But what would the stretch be without more perplexing pixel hunts? This room here has a couple of items we will need. Here was another case of looking at a guide, then looking at a playthrough to find the exact item location on screen. Amongst these standout backgrounds, this imposing tower stands tallest. Exploring new locations is always a joy in point-and-click titles. The exceptional artwork of Noctropolis played a significant role in overcoming its odd quirks and flaws. We will deal with Dreamler in another frustrating case of feeling unresolved. He gets the drop on us, and we never get to return the favor. This again will be his last appearance.
Not from my dreams, you don't. But I'll let you in on the secret. Haven't you ever wondered what would happen if you actually died in a dream?
Rounding out this gang of five, how did Dreamler come to be? A small, sickly child, Billy Dawson suffered constant nightmares. Schools and his parents struggled to cope with the struggles and sent him to a sanitarium. A victim of cruel treatments, Billy would find himself locked away in a small, windowless room. This sensory deprivation would cure him of his ailments. At least in theory. It did anything but. In fact, he learned how to control his mental powers to enter the dreams of others and kill them. Awakening from the dream, we find a shaken stiletto, fearing we were dying. You know, this would have been a great moment to have that kiss. We've gone on a bit of a journey, if disjointed in its flow, but this felt like the right moment to do so as we head into the game's end stretch. The creature in need of an image makeover did mention the Whisperman and his connections to Miss Shoto of Cygnus. She tells us that Whisperman, who is her father, resides below the building. Of course, we must first find access to his lair. Another classic case of pixel hunting, there's 3 chairs we need to pick up and toss into this furnace. 2 pieces were easy to find. Third required clicking around at random amongst this junk pile. At long last, we have found the elusive, mysterious Whisperman, an elemental who summoned us to Noctropolis. This is quite the long, late-game exposition dump. One of those moments that can make or break a game's story. One of the best examples of making a game's story that pops to mind is talking with Vigil in Mass Effect's end stretch. This is no Vigil. It's not bad, but it's lacking oomph. It felt like Noctropolis is trying to do too much here with its plot instead of giving things time to breathe. They should have focused more on its villains, considering how many get an unsatisfying send-off or walk off screen never to return. Plenty among this conversation with Whisperman felt like they could have explored in the sequel. I will note that the name Whisperman is fitting. With his soothing voice and compressed recording, you could use this as ASMR to drift off to sleep. There's a certain secret society that Whisperman brings up that I wasn't quite expecting.
No, the members of the Brotherhood of Darkness are mortals. They distinguish themselves as Illuminati, a secret society devoted to the mysteries of elementia. Their studies led them to the discovery of quintessentia. After many years, their labors yielded an approximation of the quintessence of darkness. This distillation was as potently refined as possible. They called the liquid sheer, dark sheer, and then adopted the name for themselves.
Whisperman has brought us to this world to deal with Flux, who intends on destroying Whisperman. It was Whisperman who helped Flux in discovering the existence of elementals and all his esoteric knowledge. So why impart Flux with all this knowledge? Loneliness can do much to the mind. Whisperman was happy to have Flux around to share this knowledge with him. Whisperman takes an oath of non-interference with the concerns of mankind. Instead, he's passed on the burden to us. I did watch this scene a couple times over, and to be clear, it's all a bit confusing. I guess that's part of the point, some otherworldly being with a greater understanding beyond our comprehension, but does feel a bit of left field with everything we've come across so far. From the rooftop of Cygnus construction, we can hop over to the Sunspire Tower, where the very top pierces the clouds and basks in sunlight. Here we will encounter Flux, who will trap us in a barrier of light and reveal his true identity, which in hindsight was obvious, but didn't cross my mind until the reveal. But Flux wants to go by a different name.
Darkshear? It is you.
Lately, I've answered to several names. Darkshear, Dr. Nunio Schwartz, even Flux. But now I prefer Lumashear.
We get another large exposition dump for the reasons why the former Darkshear has taken this course of action. He did leave a fair amount up to chance his nefarious plans. He wanted our blood infused with Liquid Dark, from the pool in our lair to heal up. He arranged confrontations with a gang of 5 that will leave us alive but mortally wounded. Mixing Liquid Dark with blood from someone like Peter's reality could produce the quintessence of light. And why does he want the quintessence of light? Lumashear was tired of the Brotherhood and being under their watchful eye at all times. He wanted to use technology that they abandoned years ago due to the dangers they possessed. He seeks the power that the Brotherhood denies him. With our blood, he can conjure up liquid light to gain power beyond Dream. Yeah, this justification felt a bit weak and unearned. They had Flux pop up throughout, or we could cut away to him at points. It could have gone a long way in justifying his actions. He's been a bit of a non-existent force beyond the occasional mention throughout. A man of just character flying too close to the sun and ends up corrupted is a classic comic trope. But you need to justify that turn. Like many elements of the plot of Noctropolis, it wasn't earned in a satisfying manner. After his long speech, what can we do? We now have control over Peter again. Time to cycle through our inventory and see what we could use. By now we have over a dozen items in our inventory, several that never received any usage, and as far as I know, never receive usage in the optional content or as Easter eggs. But Noctropolis here makes use of one of my favorite gaming tropes, using a long held onto item in the end game. My favorite usage of the trope is the bronze sphere from Planescape Torment. One great usage of this trope that I've covered on my channel occurs in the 1996 survival horror title Overblood. Noctropolis doesn't come close to reaching the hell yeah kind of moment that the before mentioned games deliver. Having such a cluttered inventory of useless junk played a role in this moment, not quite landing. Recall that when we received the package way back at the game's beginning, we received 2 tokens. 1 silver, 1 gold. Silver token brought us here. What happens if we use the gold token?
We will not allow you to further interfere with this man. He has proven himself worthy to assume the role of Dark Shear. He has been our champion against you and your plot to usurp the natural order. You have broken many laws and trespassed the strictures of my patronage. Your crimes demand punishment. We regret your involvement, but according to the oath of non-interference, we could not become directly involved until the integrity of nature itself was threatened. You have done well, Peter. You are Dark Shear.
With the liquid dark running through our veins, we can now travel between the 2 realities, one of the real world and one of Noctropolis. We can take Stiletto back with us to the real world, which Peter does. That said, Peter must continue to be vigilant and answer the calls of Noctropolis. I do like the shot of the 2 of them in the shadow holding hands. Why they didn't include a kiss, I don't know. Would have been a great moment for it. And so ends Noctropolis. We get a long credit section, not due to the amount of staff on the project, but the bloopers. It's a near 10 minutes worth of bloopers. As far as credit bloopers go, this is some of the funniest I've come across. You could tell they had an absolute blast while making Noctropolis.
You'll have to discuss that with the estate's attorney, Martin Sphincter.
Could have found up there and pointed guns at you. You make one more sound, I'll kill you, though. Okay. I'm Dark Shear. Ain't no such law, butthead. You that's all right. Now get out of my face. All right. Oh, I bet you that sounds good. What'd you say?
There was one character in the credit bloopers that I never came across in game.
I remember when Jim was alive. Won first place in the PPA Reflections Contest. Drew a naked lady. There's a big hoo-ha about that.
Was this someone cut from the game? As I mentioned throughout, it did feel like Noctropolis had a decent chunk of cut content. From villains wandering off never to return, to several inventory items never getting any usage. Well, no, this character does appear in game, but easy to miss. In the Cygnus construction tower, before talking to Miss Shoto, we need permission from another employee, Mr. Jenkins. You have to choose the right dialogue choices for him to make mention of incarnate technologies. If you choose different dialogue choices, the game will lock you out of these previous dialogue options. So I had to reload several times to make the right choices. Most games allow you to exhaust dialogue options, but that's not the case with Noctropolis. Several conversations will lock you out of previous dialogue choices. With knowledge of incarnate technologies, we can head on over to its smoldering remains and have a chat with the guard we saw in the credits. There's not much to this stretch in the grand scheme of things, but it was interesting to find tucked away.
All right, there's no loitering here. Say, a Dark Shear suit. Never thought I'd see that outfit again.
Speaking of tucked away, we can find this Nick Cave doppelganger walling away at a nearby bar. He does give a bit more context about the Sunspire Tower and some foreshadowing about Flux.
So would I. Incarnate was a new division of Dynatech, still under development with a team of 5 people under Dr. Nunio Schwartz. Their one and only project was for the new Sunspire Tower. The fire specialists determined that the fire started in their wing, but every member from the Incarnate team is missing.
But the wealthy widow at the edge of town, all these items lying around in our inventory, as mentioned throughout, Noctropolis is quite disjointed in its pacing. Top Hat, Dreamlair, and Green Thumb not receiving any comeuppance was frustrating. The way Peter becomes the new Darkshire with the lightest resistance led to the moment not feeling earned whatsoever. Which is too bad because they do nail the dark, mature comic feel that doesn't take itself too seriously. The game knows when to get serious, but also knows when to lighten up. It's humor from a bit of a bygone era, a good 15 years before the rise of the patented Marvel style. There's not a trace of the woeful Marvel humor that hangs heavy over modern works, movies or otherwise. They had a bit of an open ending that could lead to a sequel to continue the adventures of Darkshire. Sean Mitchell and Brent Erickson came up with a few ideas for a sequel on Noctropolis that never came to fruition. For not long after the release of Noctropolis, Bethesda Softworks acquired Flashpoint Productions. Its owner, Brent Erickson, would work there for a time. They did develop some concepts to branch off the stories of the Elder Scrolls. Bethesda would then decide to drop the story-style adventure games and focus on role-playing games. Brent Erickson, not EA, is the current IP owner of Noctropolis. EA did own the rights for a time, but let that expire, the rights returning to Brent. When Night Dive Studios came knocking, he accepted their offer and did some work on the remaster. He did mention thoughts of running a Kickstarter and creating a sequel. That said, he spent much time away from the game industry, and Noctropolis is a niche title amongst a now niche genre. Best leave it as is. For it's a quality title amongst the pantheon of point-and-click titles from its golden age, one that's a bit overlooked. Sure, it does have its issues with numerous cases of pixel hunting, the plot has notable lingering threads left unsolved and pacing problems, but Noctropolis makes up for it and more with its immersive atmosphere pulling from the works of darker comics. Those beautiful backdrops go a long way in creating a fleshed out world full of rich characters. Some more rich than others and making the most of their screen time. In a genre known for its use of humor, Noctropolis has its inspired moments. It doesn't take things too seriously, but knows when to do so when the moment arises. Compared to other point-and-click titles from its heyday, there's not a ton of coverage on it. I wouldn't go out of my way and call it some lost classic from the point-and-click heydays, but it's one more people should be aware of. Thanks for watching. Curious to hear your thoughts below on Noctropolis, especially for those who have played the game before. If you'd like to support the channel further, do consider becoming a Patreon or YouTube member. Leave a one-time donation through a Super Thanks or Ko-fi. Special shout out to the Boulder Punchers who give extra support to the channel on Patreon or YouTube memberships. For those in the Complete Global Saturation tier, American Boot, Flan Nagel. For those in the Thank You for Your Patronage tier, Tom Terrible. For those in the Now This Is Boulder Punching tier, Ethan, James Warner, Cray, The Madman in Waco, Nate 2, Original Narcy's Diet Thick 2 TM Neo Edition. For those in the Jill Sandwich tier, On Hell, Benji, Benny Winterdawn, BBF and Bloxburg, Dragon Fang Studios, James Kilgore, Leonard Aronson, Logan Lepin, Mad Morpheus Gaming, Mikkel B, Nico Pero, Sam Jones, Squid Vicious, Strawbabina, Vinyl Morpheus, Will Han, and Zin. And thanks to those for one-time donations. Thank you Bader Bear on Ko-fi, saying to check out the White Chamber game ×3. This is a prior one follow-up from a donation on Ko-fi. White Chamber is an anime sci-fi horror point-and-click from the mid-2000s. Believe it was a Newgrounds game. I can mention it'd be kind of a curiosity to check out old Flash games from the Newgrounds era. Definitely some interesting titles coming out that time, but who knows if we will cover that. And now for the post-video Q&A, so those in the Jill Sandwich tier and higher can ask these, starting with Flan Nagel. Any plans on reviewing other oddities like Bad Mojo or Ripper? Bonus, if you don't have enough questions, if you had free reign to make a bizarre FMV game, who would you cast as a lead and why? As far as future point-and-click titles, I'm not sure at the moment. I'm aware of both titles. I do keep a list of various point-and-click titles to look at in the future, but meantime, I got some other survival horror stuff I will be looking at. I am curious to looking at something like Stasis, a more recent title, which did take heavy influence from Sanitarium, which I've covered on the channel. On who I would cast as the lead for a bizarre FMV game, may he rest in peace, but I would have loved to have cast Norm Macdonald as the lead. To have someone so brilliant and funny like Norm could have been sheer gold. I'm thinking of something more in the vein of Harvester with its approach to humor. Norm would have been perfect for that. So thank you for the question, Flan Nagel. From Ethan, will you ever make a video on Max Payne 3? I've always thought that the best way to sum it up is it's the Godfather 3 of gaming, good if not great game. As a sequel, it's not great and almost devalues what comes before it. Because I did cover the first two quite a while ago on the channel. And I have played Max Payne 3 in the past. I don't plan on covering it. It's a frustrating game to say the least. When it lets you off leash and play the damn thing, it's a blast. Its gunplay and physics make for such a fun experience. That way of starting off the nightclub level of pushing the guy through the glass and the game cuts to bullet time gameplay, exquisite. And the airport moment where the Tears track kicks in, one of the best usages of licensed track in a game. Not quite as good as Far Away by Jose Gonzalez in Red Dead Redemption, but it is close. But man, the constant start and stop of gameplay with its cutscenes can drive me up the wall. And as great and stylish as the cutscenes can be, they did lean far too much into the man on fire look and feel to the story. Dropping the graphic novel panels and noir feel was a step too far. The writing could be all over the place and nowhere near the consistency of the prior two titles. I did hate how much of Max Payne 2 it tended to ignore. Like on your comment of Godfather 3, it does sound cliche, but Max Payne 3 is a case of good game, but not what I'd call a good Max Payne game. But yeah, no plans on covering it. But it was interesting to think about as you mentioned it. Thank you for the question, Ethan. And Nico Pero for the question. I have been revisiting some stuff with classic horror. Sorry for the generic question. What are some favorites of yours when it comes to classic horror in film? I prefer hearing some deep cuts you have, but I'd be fine with your favorite classics and why they're your favorites. So one that stands out for me is The Shining. Kubrick was a master of atmosphere and mood, masterclass in building tension throughout. Great example of it. Alien is sci-fi horror at its best. Shame what's happened to the franchise beyond Aliens and Alien Isolation. Halloween is a classic. John Carpenter's output for Stretch was phenomenal. You can include The Thing in there as well. Just has a way of writing his characters. There's such a quality and humor into them. And those practical effects are just something else. More on the Silent Hill front, Jacob's Ladder is great. It's a movie I've been due for a rewatch. That dance scene in particular is a standout when you realize what's going on. More deeper cuts, I don't know how deep it is, but Audition, which is a Japanese one, is fantastic. Very much a slow burn, but what a slow burn it is. I love Suspiria, the original one. I haven't seen the remake. You could see its influence all over games like a Clock Tower, especially with some of the deaths you could get there. There's something about that atmosphere music that just does it for me. David Lynch, I know we're getting beyond the realm of films as well, but some of the things he did in Twin Peaks were terrifying, especially things around Bob. There's some elements around The Return that were terrifying. Mulholland Drive, especially the one scene with at the Winky's Diner and then going to see the man behind it, is one of the best cases of horror in anything I've ever seen. Just the way he builds up to it is phenomenal. Now, I'm not the best at conveying my thoughts on films compared to games. I have considered at points looking at some of the film adaptations for games I've covered on the channel, Resident Evil movies, Silent Hill movies, although that is something that's a bit outside my realm and I don't have much interest in, really watching them. But thank you for the question, Nico Pero, and thanks to everyone else. And I will see you in the next video. You have a heart of gold. Don't let them take it from you.
You do it so well.
Yes, I had Green Thumb gynecologically customize the plant community.